Hi everyone, my name is Yin Li. I will be talking about a study on the potential role of indirect positive evidence in learning a subset grammar in the field of inflectional morphology. This is a co-authored study with Heather Gold. Apart from the poster itself, we prepared a couple of PowerPoint slides for this presentation. When the language being learned is a subset of learners L1, direct positive evidence that a construction is ill-formed in the target grammar is not always available. That's when indirect positive evidence can be employed. Indirect positive evidence, or IPE, refers to evidence drawn from errors in learners L1 made by native speakers of the learners L2. For example, Schwartz and Gold 2017 observed that after exposure to a Brazilian Portuguese accented dialogue in English, where talkers repaired essay initial words via I epenthesis, 34% of English listeners correctly deduced that essay clusters are ill-formed in Brazilian Portuguese. In this study, we chose inflection as a target research domain because it is a challenge for understanding available IPE, and it is different from similar studies in prior literatures. Specifically, we investigated whether naive English-speaking listeners of Mandarin could detect from a Mandarin speaker's plural omission errors to conclude that plurals in Mandarin nouns are generally not overtly marked. The experiment lasted for 2 consecutive days. The participants were 42 naive English learners of Mandarin. They were randomly divided into a control group and an exposure group. At the beginning of each day, the exposure group listened to a 4-minute English dialogue, in which 24 nouns in plural context were produced as their singular counterparts by a native Mandarin speaker. After that, both groups were required to learn 12 pseudo-Mandarin nouns, which are auditorily presented and paired with pictures indicating its meaning with a single object. Their word learning knowledge was tested using singular and plural pictures as prompts as displayed in Figure 1. If the exposure group understood the IPE in the dialogue, they should deduce that plural is not obligatorily marked in Mandarin, and thus that names they learned for singular items in the word learning task were appropriate in plural contexts. Follow-up questions helped interpret the results. As shown in Table 1, both groups had good performance on word learning, with singular accuracies ranged from 87.5% to 100%. We expected the control group to get a plural accuracy of 0%, but 3 of them used analogy and did well in responding to plurals. As for the exposure group, not surprisingly, they were more successful at applying singular names to plural contexts. This is especially evident from the means in the second last column in Table 1. Figure 3 suggests that the 10 lowest performing participants did not use IPE, which is supported by their answers to the follow-up questions shown in Table 2. Of the 10 highest performing participants, 2 used analogy to form plurals. The 8 others, however, used IPE. They stated that errors in the dialogue led them to conclude that Mandarin does not mark plurals, and thus that the names they learned for singulars were appropriate in plural contexts. We conclude that IPE is likely an effective way for language learners to acquire a grammar that is a subset of their native language grammar in the inflectional domain. Thank you.